The Phoenix Suns blow another road game, 140-129 in Milwaukee on national TV. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, what just happened?
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Dime Magazine, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen Sunday afternoon, evening, night, into Monday morning. We are free and available everywhere, including YouTube. So if it is your first time finding the show, you just need somebody to, a shoulder to cry on today. Well, we're here every day, not just after the frustrating one. So hit follow or subscribe wherever you are. Get a new episode in your feed every single Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer all season long and get locked onto the Phoenix Suns from now through the off season. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to get started. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Joining us as he does every single week is Brendon Dueñas, a writer over at Bright Side of the Sun. Brendon, 140-129. We'll kick it off as we always do, but I think we may just, fold into just frustrated ranting at a certain point, but we're gonna get kicked off with our moments of the game, and I will let you take us away.
Yeah, so for me in this one, it was pretty clearly just the way the game started. No Antetokounmpo, and all of a sudden Bobby Portis turns into Giannis Portis. So that was just to me, that just kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. Like, just mentally, it just looked like the Suns thought, no Giannis, like, we're going to come in here, we got this, big three is healthy, and they just couldn't. You can't let role players like that get hot, because once they get hot, it doesn't matter how well you contest. And the fact that they truly weren't contesting consistently too that's a sidebar for another topic we'll get to. But I think it just kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. Like, you just can't let professional basketball players get hot, or they will cook you, and that's what we saw here. And you can't fall behind a team as streaky as the Bucks from three. And like, you look at, if I told you before the game, the Suns scored 129 points in a game with no Giannis and shot pretty damn efficiently. I think they're shot like 59% from the field. You'd think, oh, how much did the Suns win by? Not, the Suns lost by double digits. So to me, the Portis thing just snowballed into some more of the issues we'll get into. But that was my moment.
Yeah, the thing with Portis that just doesn't make any sense is that it came from everywhere. Right? Like, it was ISO, post, transition threes, catch and shoot threes in the half court, stuff around the basket, which is usually what you would expect him to do. It felt like the guy just, I guess maybe there's a trickle of that is not supposed to happen. That is unusual. Bobby Portis has not had an amazing season, but there's only so far that'll take you when, again, it's coming from all over the court. It's not one thing that's just getting lucky. And they're not even contesting the shots, like you mentioned. It's just, that's where it verges and becomes, I think, inexcusable and just the definition of insanity type of thing of, like, how is the hottest guy on the court continuing to just take open shots like he's some anonymous undrafted rookie getting court time for the first? Like, this guy beat you in the finals. Like, if nothing else, you know what I mean? Like, we all know who Bobby Portis is. So it did not make a lot of sense. Do you think they just underestimated the Bucks? Do you think they saw Giannis get scratched and they're like, all right, bet, we got this?
I think so. And they're not good enough to be doing that, especially on the defensive end. Like, they're not talented enough defensively to take teams lightly, or they will do, like, exactly what happened tonight or today. 140 points on crazy efficiency from deep, and good luck taking teams lightly. We got 14 games left. It's time to really, like, show a sense of urgency, and that's the one thing that just frustrated me the most is, like, it's effort. If these guys are hitting tough contested shots, that's one thing. Like, it happens. But yeah, it was definitely, to me, it seemed like just a snooze fest on a Sunday afternoon, and they're kind of ready to get home. Like I just can't explain it.
No, me neither. So my moment of the game was the end of the third quarter. So the Suns cut it to 6, and bigger than even just cutting it to 6. Like they had a prolonged run of, I thought, Beal getting downhill. I do think the effort on closeouts and the fight defensively was better. And then 9 quick points, largely just by getting into the bonus and drawing kind of junk fouls. And then it's capped off by Lillard hitting that logo 3 to end the quarter at the buzzer. And I think it just kind of speaks to what you were saying, just a lack of intensity, a lack of showing up. And to have it come as such a letdown after they had strung together so many good possessions, I think is what really bothered me the most. Is even when it feels like they're getting back into a game, mental lapses, lack of effort, whatever, and they're kind of right back where they started. And at that point, Milwaukee really didn't let off the brakes again, and that ended the game basically. So I don't think you're probably going to win a lot of games where you allow yourself to go down by 20, but I guess just watching it and kind of hoping the comeback got a little closer, it just was that much more deflating to see it come that close and then fall apart again.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I think that was definitely deflating and kind of led to some of that momentum that carried over in the fourth. And you would think teams would learn by now to pick up Dame as soon as he crosses half court, but they just kind of let him get to a spot. And
especially in that situation, right? Like there's nothing you're having to worry about behind the play. It's just like get a hand in his face because it's the end of the quarter.
Double team him, get a hand in his face, do something, make him make a decision. And they really were starting to chip away at it. I thought they had a good chance. And to me that was a huge momentum shift. So good call.
Well, let's not let too much time go by before we say something positive. So because we have a little bit more time in this segment and I want to be more specific about that run because it was strong, Beal played out of his mind in this game. I would say I think that Lakers game still where he had 40-plus obviously is an easy one to pick. And there have been some defensive games where I thought like the Pelicans game, he was really, really good on defense, guarding Zion and doing some interesting things as a team defender. But 11 of 15, relentless getting downhill, 7 assists. And maybe it does just feel better when you're it look better when you're the only guy bringing it. But especially in that second half, that was about the most unstoppable I can remember Beal looking in a Suns uniform. So definitely a tip of the hat to him. He's the only reason this ever got close, in my opinion.
Yeah, like you said, he got wherever he wanted. And when he gets downhill like that, that shows that he's confident in his health too, to me. And that's huge. Just feels like he's slowly but surely getting all the way back. And I think we're going to see a lot more, hopefully, from him, and just as they ramp it up these last 14 games. But yeah, that was definitely a positive. I'll echo that. And it's important that these guys stay healthy and keep getting these reps. As frustrating as this game was, like, you'll take these growing pains as long as they're healthy and just hope they can learn from it. Because to me, Monday is going to kind of show, okay, like, are you guys going to actually focus on, what got you in this hole? And there's been times this season where it seems like they've had those answers immediately after, and then it's just not sustainable. So I don't want to see it for just 1 or 2 games. Like, I really want to see them kind of pick it up for an extended stretch where they're correcting these mistakes and just playing with that intensity that they, quite frankly, need to have with how jam-packed the Western Conference standings are. So it's time to wake up. It's been time to wake up yesterday. So
yeah. They got to win basically the next 4 at this point because the last 2 weeks of their schedule, which we've known since the schedule was released 8 months ago or whatever, is absolutely brutal. And losing games like this without Giannis and a couple to Boston and just the hiccups along the way, Houston twice, like those are the games you should have been picking up. And the fact that they didn't means the next 4 are absolutely urgent, and you just cross your fingers for that last 2 weeks. But that's the stakes when you have injuries and a poor health situation and a cobbled together roster is this game actually, I think fans are well within their right to be pretty disappointed and pretty panicked after a game like this. So let's break down the defense. What on earth was that? We talked a little bit about it with Portis and Lillard, but we'll dive into more detail coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for your role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I've told you time and again that my current job would not have existed for me if not for LinkedIn. It had all of the details about what I was going to be doing. I knew that I was qualified. That gave me the courage to go ahead and apply. My new bosses were then able to see me, see what I was able to be doing and why I was a good fit. They were listed in the posting so we could communicate with each other fairly easily all across and through LinkedIn, eventually exchanged emails, get on an interview, all stemming from the fact that the details were front and center. They could see me, I could see them. Definitely a small business. We have like a half dozen full-time people. Exactly what LinkedIn does for so many companies. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time for or resources to hire. LinkedIn constantly finding ways to make that process easier, including a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker and easier for you. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So become one of them. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Main takeaway of the game is that the Suns' defense was absolutely atrocious, Brandon. I don't know of another way to put that any more sugar-coated or sweet sounding. There is really no excuse for how poorly they played. You mentioned it from an effort standpoint. I would just double down on that and say, I'm not sure what percentage of the game would you say that you felt like this team was even on the same page with each other, that the five guys out there even knew what the coverage was or what the rotations were supposed to be, what the help assignments were supposed to be? I might go like 10, 15% of the time. This felt like a team that had almost never played basketball together and had no idea what they wanted to be doing to defend this Milwaukee team.
Yeah, I'd say maybe 7 or 8 minutes total. And it was all came at the same time pretty much.
Maybe before Portis checked in, the first 7 or 8 minutes.
Pretty much. And then that little run in the third where it seemed like there was some life and they were doing the little things that if they did that from the start, they'd probably be up by double digits. But instead they just, like I said earlier, they're not talented. They don't have the personnel to where they can just take nights off defensively. Like the only way they're going to be an average or slightly above average defensive team is if they're just going 110% and just going full speed on defense, making the right rotations, playing connected. And even then they're like maybe a top like 14 defense, like with everything going completely right. So to me, if you're not connected, you're not making the rotations, you're not talking, communicating, closing out hard, like they just have no chance. They're just shooting themselves in the foot. Like, yes, they have offensive firepower and they could pretty much keep up with almost any team in the association when it comes to that. I still believe in that. I still think they're good enough to win a championship, but if they want to, it starts on the defensive end. That's where they have to bring it. And just today was a great example of why, if they don't, this is what's going to happen. So I hope it was a wake-up call, one of several that they've had over the last few weeks. But now I think with the big three healthy for an extended period, this is where they really got to figure it out.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. Just to focus on the specifics of what went wrong today even more, I would agree, okay, beginning of the second half, I would say maybe even you could say a large portion of the second half. Durant and Booker, I do think both were playing with a little more energy, contesting shots a little better. I thought Durant had a block in the third quarter. He had a deflection or steal kind of in the early fourth quarter on just one-on-one solid plays that you kind of have to have. Finishes the game with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Booker, just sort of with Booker, it's often like not making the mistakes he probably did in the first half is like the credit you want to give him when he makes adjustments, because he does still lose guys off ball. He watches the ball too much. He's half a foot off here and there on closeouts and contests and everything else. We know that transition defense can be a problem for Booker when he's arguing about calls or trying to smack the guy who got the rebound off of his bad shot attempt. We know all the things that Booker does. He fixed some of that. But Allen and Nurkic, it was untenable tonight. And 31 and 16 for Damian Lillard, it kind of doesn't even need to be put into any more detail than that. He absolutely carved them up. And whether it was failing to get through screens, whether it was kind of being in no man's land and drop defense like Nurkic was a couple of times, and then on the backside, just, again, those late contests, lack of effort and energy to give a second effort on a defensive possession. But again, it was like, okay, yeah, you could have predicted that Grayson Allen would have a hard time guarding Damian Lillard. You could have predicted that Nurkic would struggle to contain any of that, even without Giannis in the game. But it was, once you could tell they were trying to change it up and having no idea what they were doing. Eric Gordon and Kevin Durant had a miscommunication. Drew Eubanks got caught up in it a bunch of different times. The guys I already mentioned were, and then at the end of the day, after all of that, they bench Nurkic, and we'll get to that in the last segment to close things out. But they bench Nurkic, and they just felt tiny. It just was like, this is not a solution. Like, I get it might be the only one available to you right now, but all of a sudden when they go to that small lineup, it's like, well, now it's hopeless. There's nothing because there's no rim protection. There's no length to clog passing lanes or driving lanes. Brook Lopez looks like he's 6 feet taller than anybody else on the court right now. And that just felt like it was a ball game. It was a wrap at that point. Yeah. Once the Bucks forced them to adjust to so much of a degree that now they're actually at a disadvantage size-wise on top of everything, it just really snowballed today in a way that, I think fans have every reason to be pretty worried based on this game this far into the season.
Yeah, no, I think the size concerns are very valid, and Isaiah Thomas is on the way, so that's great. I'm not sure that's going to help there, but one thing I will say is this kind of reminds me of how valuable a guy like Josh Okogie is in a game like this, where that point of attack, they just didn't have that body to throw at Dame, and I think it was last episode when we were talking about like Okogie still has a chance to carve out meaningful minutes for this team in very specific roles and matchups, and this is one of them where I'm not saying he's going to come in and fix all their problems, but just being that instant energy, that spark defensively, navigating through screens and making the extra effort on defense, that's infectious. And I think Royce O'Neal brought it in certain moments where I think he was trying to do that and be that guy, but it's so tough when you're the only one really consistently giving that effort. So I think that's where someone like Okogie, who's just more of a specialist, can come in and slow someone like Dame down, pick him up full court, make him a little uncomfortable. So that's just kind of one random thought I had as you're going through Dame carving up the Suns, is like, it's not a great ringing endorsement that he's kind of their only option to do that, but I think it's just reality where this team needs to be at complete full strength, and so many things need to go right for them defensively. It feels like that it's an uphill battle half the time, especially if you're not competing and diving and contesting. Yeah. Like, it's just, you're not going to win games like that, plain and simple.
So it's weird. The big three, Nurkic and Okogie, have played 7 minutes together this season. That's just not a lineup they've gone to. Some of that's because, Okogie's a bench player, so you would have to really choose to have him be out there with the other starters in order for that to be out there, in order for that lineup to play. So maybe we'll see that more, given how stark it's been with these games that Okogie has had to miss, and maybe they just say, okay, we have to try that. But the offense just all season has pretty much fallen off a cliff when Okogie is out there. And so I think there's a cap on the minutes he's going to be able to play, even though I'm fully with you, ringing the bell, letting the good world know, like, Josh Okogie's going to have to play for this team. But the other thing I would say is, and I guess a question to you, I feel like this feels like the type of game that could shake something loose in terms of Grayson Allen, something changing there. I know he scored 8 assists. To me personally, I don't think it's worth it I don't think the trade-off is there. I do think he hurts the defense. You can look at all the lineup data where, it gets thrown around a lot online these days of how good the Suns starting lineup has been. They have the worst defensive rating of any of the best lineups in the league. So yeah, they're up there in terms of net rating, but it's just the offense. And if we all are in agreement that that's not a pathway to winning games consistently, then I think something still has to change. Despite all that, despite how good they've scored, despite the fact that even on a night when he got shredded on defense, Grayson still had 25 and 8 on 8 of 14 shooting. I get it. That's what he's been doing all year, but look where they are given that. So I still think, and I don't think we've talked about this, Brandon, but that Royce O'Neal getting sliding into the starting lineup in Grayson's place and just having a heart-to-heart, just like we saw Durant step up defensively midway through the year or just before, and telling, I think it probably most likely Booker, it's all you, brother. You're a point of attack defender. And maybe that doesn't actually fully happen until the playoffs, but that has always to me been what the destiny of this team was going to have to be. And I guess it's just a matter of how long do you wait before you get real about what's going to happen and put your star players in an uncomfortable situation. How many times do you have to get 140 scored on you before that becomes the obvious conversation in that locker room? Because playing a Kogi 40 minutes is not going to work. Grayson getting shredded is not going to work. We've seen Booker do it, and if they want to win anything close to a championship, he's going to have to do it much, much more than he ever has. And, we're a month from the playoffs. Like, I don't know if not now, when, I guess.
Yeah, no, now's the time to experiment with something like that. Like, I still think Grayson's, the season he's having, first off, like, has been incredible. Like, I don't think this team is even in the play-in right now without how important he's been. But at the same time, when it comes to the issues you bring up, he's the clearest solution as far as how do you mix things up? There's not too many options. To me, this is like the no-brainer to at least try, add some more size, defense, toughness, whatever you want to substitute that shooting for. I think that's Royce is kind of the no-brainer, just looking at it from the outside looking in. And I'm here for it. I think you should definitely attempt to, especially with this big three healthy, like just try something new. That doesn't necessarily mean Grayson's going to be getting less minutes. It's going to be different looks for him where I think.
And he probably is, right? Like he played 39 today. I don't think you're getting there if you're the sixth man. So it would be a demotion. It would be, but I don't know, man. It's like you're going to, is it more important to reward Grayson for leading the league in 3-point percentage and being healthy and playing off these guys really well, or is it more important to maximize what your team's going to be long term? Like it's March 17th, at some point, like stuff's not fair. Like, I don't know. That's just where I am. I get it, but like to your point, like it is a little bit of an experiment, right? And that's why I phrased it the way that I did, with Booker kind of having to slide into the point of attack role, because Royce O'Neal's not going to slither around screens and contain Damian Lillard any better than Grayson is. What you're doing there is you're just adding more overall size, but you have to have somebody to really get those matchups that Grayson's been getting, and that's where it does end up having to be Beal or Booker. And that's not a lot of superstars have to do that, but that's just how this roster was built. I don't see a way around it.
Yeah, and it works both ways too, right? Like, I'll play devil's advocate here, where what are the alternatives? Like, this is something I think we've kind of circled around over and over. Like, if they do this and the bench isn't getting the same production that they need, or the same size of having a Royce O'Neal to come in and add that size, then we kind of go back to this, revolving door of, okay, now we're too small. We don't have the toughness off the bench. So I think to mix and match with those guards coming in and out, but I do think it balances the roster in a sense that you can sit Booker, Beal earlier than you normally would, and bring Allen in with that first unit and kind of mix and match rotation that way, in a creative way, which is what I think the most logical solution for Vogel would be if he does go this route. And I'm not saying, I don't think either of us are sitting here preaching saying this is the guaranteed solution that, will fix the Suns, but I think it's definitely worth exploring and just seeing what you have there and see what Allen could do. And he's just kind of there's no one in the big three you're going to send to the bench at this point. And Nurkic isn't not starting. So that's kind of just the one area, the one path that makes the most sense, just looking.
And you still have a Kogi that would be coming off the bench. So in terms of kind of the size and physicality, that if when he's healthy, that kind of fills a little bit of what O'Neal has been able to bring with that. And again, yeah, Grayson can probably still play a decent amount with the big three. You can have it so that maybe Booker or Beal, whoever you are asking to take on more of those top-level perimeter matchups, they may only have to do it for 4, 5, 6 minutes, and then either Grayson or Okogie gets that matchup whenever they check in. So it's not a huge shift, but again, I know in the behind the scenes of this stuff, benching a guy who's been huge for you and one of the only consistent constants all season, it's easier said than done. But let's jump to the Nurk report to start off our final segment coming up in just one moment. First, today's show brought to you by Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you, and it's the easiest way to update your wardrobe heading into the upcoming season. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with professional stylists that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work just for you. Just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. Order boxes when and how you want with no subscription required. They also will send you 5 just-for-you pieces, outfit recommendations, and pro styling advice. You keep what works and send back the rest. Your stylist always sends just right pieces and the fit is on point. It's like they have style ESP. They just get you. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. If you don't like to shop and save time and effort on that, well, get outfits from Stitch Fix that make you look good and feel good. If you don't love something, again, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. All right, Brandon, I have a Phoenix Suns pre-take that we're going to close the show with that is going to make all the people who comment in the YouTube saying, wow, I love coming to this show sometimes because it's a more level-headed approach and, like that it's never too hot or too cold. Thank you, whatever. I'm going to burn those bridges in a moment. But before we get there, the Nurk report. This type of game is, I think, why it's hard for me to get behind the idea that Nurkic is going to kind of be the fire that lights under this team when needed. We've seen him be that, right? He gets into it with Grant Williams in that Dallas game a few weeks back, and the Suns just completely swallow up Dallas the rest of that game, and different moments like that have been catalyzers for the Suns. But when you see him just wandering through this game, it is tough. And the reality, I think, facing this team, Brandon, is that they don't have a guy that is going to just, burn the candle at both ends, absolutely kill himself competing. There's like 10, 15 of those guys in the NBA. It's not a crime that the Suns don't have one. But I think there's been games this year where you would have crossed your fingers that Nurkic was turning into that. I don't know what happened today.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of the whole idea of Nurkic, right? Is just someone that in regular season games, like a lot of his moments in certain matchups, he looks incredible, and I think he opens up a lot of things for this offense. But when it comes to guarding in space and just thinking about playoff basketball, thinking about how these coaches are going to attack him, and they will, like, these are things that are inevitable, like. And that's why I caught some heat for some stuff I've said over the season just about Nurkic and these thoughts, and
including from him.
Exactly. I threw him in a trade machine and had some ideas. And look, I like Nurkic. I think he's a fan favorite. He's awesome to follow on Twitter. He does a lot of the dirty work. He's great in certain matchups. But that being said, I do think there's going to be moments in the playoffs where you cannot survive with him on the court. And we've seen that in stretches here to close out games. It's become pretty consistent at this point, and I think it's only going to get more amplified and come playoff time. So to me, figuring out solution, like depending on who's going to close that out, like Thad Young is someone I'd like to see get some more opportunity.
I don't get it, man.
Yeah, like that's the whole reason you brought him in, right? For these types of moments, and even Bull just getting like, to me, Vogel's kind of backtracked a little bit in terms of, I thought he was really experimental with a lot of things early on in the season, and I was pretty complimentary of him, even though it wasn't working. Like I liked that he was attempting new things, and to me, to be so dead set on not giving Thad or Bull a chance, just to see what happens in certain lineups and situations. Like, to me, that's what else do you got right now at this point? The trade deadline's gone. I don't get it. And look, Nurkic, I think if they play against like the Thunder, for example, could be huge, just because that's a team that can't rebound, and he could really take advantage of them in a series like that. So I don't want to get twisted. Like, I think Nurkic can have some great playoff moments, but when it comes down to certain closing matchups, like, he's just not going to be out there. That's just a reality that they should have prepared for, and they didn't. So they got to figure something out.
Yeah, I guess it's like, I think it was just a mistake to go small, like, just period. I think, but you're not Nurkic, so Eubanks or Thad, but with Nurkic specifically, it just felt like it went wrong today when they tried to jumble the matchups on both ends. Lopez only played 18 minutes in this game, so I get it. The Bucks also dictated the lineup stuff as well. The Suns don't just get to do whatever they want. They have to, they're trying to chase from behind and all that stuff. I get it. But when Nurkic was having to contest out to Portis or Beverly at times and read different kind of overhelp schemes that the Suns were throwing out there at times to try and take some things away from Lillard, just none of it worked once Nurkic was having to do anything outside of dropping in the pick and roll. And that's predictable. But again, you said he went backward in terms of the experimentation. It feels like they played 7 guys today, and one of them only played 20 minutes. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. I really don't know what happened today. But let me throw this at you. Speaking of the man we just mentioned here, is it too late for the coach to get fired? Phoenix Suns pre-take? It's not me saying it. This is a pre-take, so I'm just guessing what's going to be on ESPN and TNT or whatever. I'm not. I would never say such a thing. This is just me, imagining what we might see on a chyron at the bottom of, Fox Sports 1 tomorrow. What do you think?
Too early or too late? I think I would lean yes to that, just because it's so, like, it's just almost unheard of to fire coaches late in the season. But is it impossible? No. Like, if things really go awry in the locker room, then there's a possibility. I just don't see it happening. I think, and I wouldn't really be fair to Vogel either. Like, just this team has not had a chance to really click and get their stuff together healthy over the course of the season. I know I'll probably catch some hate for that, but I'm not saying I'm a diehard Vogel fan or anything like that. But I think this team needs to get like a little more of an extended run and really try to build off this chemistry and momentum. And to me, again, I will take a loss in Milwaukee on a Sunday over one of the big three getting injured at this point. Just get to the finish line healthy. And, if it's an effort thing, that to me is something that can be corrected. And it's definitely concerning. And the lack of, urgency is definitely mind-boggling at this point, and everyone's going to point to coaching, but it starts with the players too. So to me, too early or too late, whatever you want to phrase it, for Vogel to get fired, yes, but I'm sure someone will start talking about it, and the heat will. I think the seat is getting a little bit hotter. It's gonna. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like
Yeah.
You don't fire guys in the middle of the playoffs or anything, so we probably missed the window for it to happen this season. I would say it will definitely be a podcast topic after a potential playoff exit, right? Like that.
Yeah, if they're a first round exit, or if they disappoint in the playoffs, I think he'll be the scapegoat. He'll be the first one to go. I don't think the big three is going to get anyone. The big three is going to get moved this offseason if they fall short. I think Vogel's kind of the guy that's going to take that blame. And to me, that's what makes the most sense. But we'll see.
Yeah, if they had a fully healthy loss like this, with as much runway of health that they have had now earlier in the season, if everybody's following what I'm saying, like if this was game 30 or so healthy with the full big three, but it happened in December or January, a national TV effortless, hapless loss to a Giannis-less Bucks team, I think we would have been having a real conversation. But after game number 68, it's just not really reasonable. So I don't think it's going to happen. But there's a lot of stuff that gets thrown out there about NBA teams that's unrealistic and unreasonable. So I guess I just am saying it would not be a surprise if that was one of the talking points. But we're stuck with this whole situation until it ends here. Do we see Thad Young ever again? We'll see. Does Isaiah Thomas save the season? I guess that's to be determined. But thank you for listening here on this Sunday evening into Monday morning. Hit follow or subscribe wherever you get the show if you have not already. We'll be back throughout the week with Steven Perjone. We have 2 home games coming up for the Suns this week to cover as well, and much more throughout the rest of the season. I will catch you guys next time.